Ms. Hillman and her mother appear in court because the defendant, Mr. O'Neal, got her pregnant and has refused to do anything for her and the baby. She is here to prove that he actually is the father of her son. Mr. O'Neal stays confident and says that he knows for sure he is not the father of the child. Here is how the case begins.
Ms. Hillman, you and your mother are appearing today because you claim the defendant got you pregnant and has since refused to do anything for your 13-month-old son, DeMarcus. You've petitioned the court for a DNA test to prove that he is DeMarcus's father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, clearly something had to have gone wrong somewhere. Ms. Hillman says that Mr. O'Neal has no form of relationship with the child, and as far as finances for taking care of the baby go, it's her mother, and her grandmother that sort that out.
I got my doubts. I ain't doing nothing for the baby.
So you mean it?
Nothing. No chain, no diaper, no pampers, no nothing. Cause I ain't finna take care of nothing. I ain't mine.
But
I
that
done been through that experience before.
Well,
So I ain't finna be no dummy 2 times.
There is no shaking Mr. O'Neal. He stands firm in the fact that he has his doubts, and he is not going to take care of a baby that isn't his. He even says that this isn't his first experience dealing with something like this, and he is not going to be played for a fool twice.
Okay, me and Mr. O'Neal, we met through 2 mutual friends. The first night we met, we chilled, okay, He told me I was his girlfriend. He didn't ask me like he told me. He demanded that, okay, you're my girlfriend, we're together. So the second night, me, him, and the same 2 mutual friends, we got together, we chilled. That's when I conceived DeMarcus.
Haha, I'm not going to lie, that was very hilarious. Mr. O'Neal says that he likes a woman who plays hard to get, and in his opinion, keeping with Ms. Hillman was too easy. But guess what? Ms. Hillman says that that was not the case, and he actually begged to sleep with her.
you all met, and very quickly you said you wanted to be in a relationship with Ms. Hillman. Is that correct, Mr. O'Neal?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so you did tell her, okay, we're in a relationship now, and you all were having sex? Were you using protection?
No.
Maine, I can't believe these two right now. They act like high school teens. Oh well. Mr. O'Neal says that he has been trying to have kids with other women, but they never got pregnant. The fact that he slept with Ms. Hillman and she got pregnant almost immediately makes it a little suspicious.
You said, hold on, Mr. O'Neal, you said you caught her with her ex and you saw text messages?
No, he didn't. He lying.
What did you see?
How you doing? What you doing tonight? Oh, nothing.
He thinks, I can't be the only one who thinks Mr. O'Neal is making up stories in his head. He claimed to have seen text messages on Ms. Hillman's phone that showed she was talking to another man. He then says that he thinks that her ex stayed the night when he left Ms. Hillman's home.
Hold on, you just chilling out by yourself? And what happens?
Me and my homeboy were in the park chilling. A random guy, he walked by first. He ain't said nothing. Walked by the second time and looked me up. And so he was like, you little Nature baby daddy? I said, yeah, why?
I mean, which is it? Is he saying that the baby is his, or is he saying that the baby isn't his? He is making the whole thing sound so confusing. His next confession says that a random guy walked up to him and his friend and told him that Ms. Hillman's baby belongs to one of the stranger's homeboys.
Look at that. And look at yourself in the mirror. He look like you. He like all your family. All y'all got big eyes, big lips, big nose. Look at the cheeks. He got bags under his eyes just like you and your mama.
But no, Mr. O'Neal, I have to say this to you because you say you've been through this before.
Yeah, I have been through this before.
Well, that's a pretty reasonable confession. Mr. O'Neal explains that the fear and trauma of being in this same situation is why he is refusing to accept the baby without proof. He says that he knows how it feels to get attached only to find out that the baby isn't his, and he doesn't want to go through that ever again.
Thank you. You're welcome. This evidence is DeMarcus's birth certificate. And under father's name, there is no father listed.
And Your Honor, it's embarrassing. Cause like when he go to the doctor, they look at me funny like, oh, it's just another person that don't know who their daddy is or their daddy wasn't there to sign their birth certificate. That's embarrassing.
And there we go again with these two acting like they are acting in some drama role in a movie. Ms. Hillman is hurt because people look at her and judge her as another lady who has no idea who her child's father is. Mr. O'Neal still believes he is not the father. Well, here are the results.
Mr. O'Neal, you are the father.
Mr. Miles appears in court to prove to his 37-year-old daughter that he is her father. He claims that he initially denied paternity when she was a baby, but wants to do the right thing and make amends. Ms. Turner, the defendant, wants to prove that he is not her father. Well, let's jump right into the case. It starts like this.
Mr. Miles, you are in court today to prove to your 37-year-old daughter, Christine, that you are her father.
Yes, ma'am.
You admit you initially denied paternity when she was a baby, but are here to right your wrongs.
Yes, ma'am.
Honestly, that's a perfect question. Mr. Miles has been absent from her life for 37 years, and all of a sudden he thinks it's okay to just pop into her life and say that he wants to be her father? It doesn't work that way. Let's not forget the fact that he actually denied being her father to start with.
Your mom said that I was your father. Why she changed her story, I have no idea. But that's not the truth. And why now I had the opportunity to be able to look for you because I wanted to see who you are and who your family was.
It took you 37 years to do that?
Wow! That's one huge confession coming out of Mr. Miles's mouth. He admits that he was very young and stupid when he met her mother, and he had no idea that she was pregnant after they kicked it in bed a few times. The court summoned him and asked if he was the father, and at the time he said no because Ms. Turner's mom was sleeping with other men.
How long were you in a relationship with her mother?
I was about 2 months is about how long we were together. I was living with her because I mean, like I said, I was 17 years old. I was couch surfing. I didn't really have any place to live. You know, when we got together, I moved in with her, and that's, you know, we do what we do in a relationship.
I think any man would be upset if they got to find out something like that. Mr. Miles says that he believed that he was in a committed relationship with Ms. Turner's mother, but after they broke up, he found out that she was sleeping with 2 of his friends, and that upset him a lot.
Recently, when I had asked her about Richard, and then she just kept on saying, he's not your father. I don't know why he's doing this now after 37 years.
So who did you grow up believing was your biological father?
I didn't, not until I was 16.
Maine, you can tell that her childhood was not exciting at all. She went through so much trauma because she didn't have a father to work her through life, and honestly, that can be very traumatizing. But like she said, she is a strong woman, and that's all that matters.
You owe like $28,000 in back child support. And that just shocked me. Like I said, I just didn't have a clue that was even there.
And you didn't try to find out then?
I did.
What did you do to try to find her, Mr. Miles?
Back then, there was no internet, no cell phones. All you had was people that you knew and telephone lines.
It doesn't seem like Mr. Miles is telling the truth. I mean, what does he have to lose? He is the one who brought the case to court. He says that he tried to search for her, but back in his time, there was no internet or telephone, and he ran a proper search.
Well, I met Mr. Miles one time when I was 16, and he came to my grandparents' house, and my grandparents actually let me go stay the night with him and his wife. I was never told about them until that very day. Nothing to prepare myself for how I was gonna feel.
The truth bombs in this case are just unending. Apparently, there was a time where Mr. Miles met Ms. Turner, and he wanted to take responsibility and step up to be a father. But sadly, nothing fruitful came out of their meeting. Ms. Turner says that after she spent time in his house, he dropped her off and she never saw him again.
Your Honor, we tried. My wife, she went through this. That's why it was so important, because she went and didn't have a father either.
I had a father, I just didn't know my biological father until I was 18.
Well, I didn't have any of that, so you're lucky.
And I'm not lucky, I understand, and that's why I feel for you.
Oh, she is definitely not hiding that feeling. She is upset, and she has every right to be. Mr. Miles's wife went through the same thing, and she totally understands how Ms. Turner is feeling right now. She just hopes that her husband is ready to handle her emotions when the truth comes out.
But do you both understand, Mr. and Mrs. Miles, do you both understand that her mother told her you were not her biological father?
I didn't know that, because when we were in the court, she said I was the father. So after that, I assumed she would tell her that I was the father, because that's what happened in court.
Looks to me like Ms. Turner's mother is to blame for all of this. She never told her daughter the truth, and that's why they are all in this mess. Well, let's get the results and see if Mr. Miles is really her biological father. Here are the results.
Mr. Miles, you are not the father. I'm very sorry.
We've had a connection ever since the day that I met her mom.
This case begins with Ms. Smith telling the courtroom that her daughter could have 3 potential fathers. Yup, you heard that right. She hopes to find out the truth and right her wrongs so her child could have a better future.
Miss Smith, you're here because you love your 1-year-old daughter, Tamia, and say you're hoping your mistakes don't ruin her life. Now, at this moment, you claim she has 3 possible fathers. You've requested results of multiple paternity tests to determine who her 1 biological father is.
Well, at least she's being honest about her situation. She told the judge straight up that while in her 8-year relationship, she messed around, and she did this because she was going through a rough time with her husband.
The bottom line is, Mr. Bailey, you acting like you didn't participate, but you had sex enough to understand that there's a possibility that you're Tamia's father.
She has sex with a lot of men that could be possible the father.
That's not true. Not at all.
Ow! Seems like Mr. Bailey and Ms. Smith love to kick it in bed. Mr. Bailey denies it, but Ms. Smith claims that they had sex in every house they found during their house hunt. Talk about 2 people who love being in their spaces. This is a perfect example.
Who did you tell that you were pregnant and that they were the father?
I told
She told both of us. Me and him actually stayed in my car when I was staying in Rome, Georgia. We were sitting in the car. I picked him up because he was walking. We had a conversation.
My husband had a car. We had
a conversation.
All they want to do is talk over each other. Glad the judge told them to bring their volumes down. It was almost as if my ears were about to explode from all their yelling.
And Miss Smith has admitted that she had a 1-night stand with you during the window of conception. And you potentially could be her daughter's biological father.
No, I don't think so.
Now that is one hilarious reply from Judge Lauren. He sure needs to check his math. He claims he slept with Ms. Smith during the window of conception, but says he is sure he isn't a possible father to the baby. I wonder how that works.
I need to hear from you. When did you first hear about Tamia?
About 2 months ago, the girl that I met her through came to see me, and she brought her and the child and another child. I was sitting in the car with them talking, and I seen the child, but she never said that I could be the possible father.
Oh, wow. I mean, if that's how things really played out, I would honestly think it was a joke or some type of prank. I'm on his side. If Ms. Smith really thought he was the father, she should have done better with the way she broke the news to him.
Well, I have a medical condition. I was diagnosed with leukemia in 2009.
Glad to see you're well.
Yeah, I take chemo, and my doctor told me that if I did have children, that they'd have severe birth defects if I could have kids at all.
One thing I love about this man is that he has enough proof to back up his claim. Seems like finding out the father of the child is turning into a mystery. I wonder what's going to happen next in the courtroom.
Hold on.
Let her give her testimony.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
We stayed in the same house together. She sat me, his older sister, and her. We sat in the same kitchen together while the older sister was perming her hair, and she was telling me and the sister, oh, y'all need to get some of these men up here, this, that, and the other. You know, basically telling us how many people she's messing with down from Rome to Atlanta.
Does the yelling end? At this point, I think the only way out is to reveal the results from the DNA test. Well, here they come.
That the biological father is Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
That's the news you wanted, right?
No.
Mr. Kennedy claims to be a nice guy who was forced to make a tough decision to drag the defendant to court to prove that he is not the father of her son. Ms. Pope, the defendant, is in court with her mother, and she wants to prove he is the father of her child. Well, here is how the whole thing starts.
Mr. Kennedy, you claim to be a nice guy who was forced to make the tough decision to drag the defendant to court to prove you did not father her 3-month-old son, Christian. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The case starts off with Mr. Kennedy telling the judge that he believes Ms. Pope is just looking for someone to pin the baby on. If we're to believe that, it means that she might have been sleeping with other men. But let's not jump to conclusions.
So wait a minute, why were you sleeping with him if he was a jerk?
He came off as an all-American guy in the beginning. We had a lot of things in common. We had the same birthday, the same football team.
That's enough to sleep with somebody, Jerome. Birthday and a football team.
If we're being honest, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Ms. Pope explains that she stopped having feelings for Mr. Kennedy when he started to accuse her of having feelings for her ex, when clearly she wanted to be with him.
That's not even remotely true. The reason why my feelings had changed was because she didn't have a GED. She didn't have a future plan going for her. At the time, I was going to school for my associates in criminal justice. I was working and raising my first son.
Nah, he did not just say that. Wow, I would lose my mind if someone said that to my face. Apparently, Mr. Kennedy explains that he lost feelings for her because she didn't have any future plans for herself, and he wasn't ready to commit to a woman like that.
I found out that I was pregnant at 6 weeks. I had a cutie one morning and threw it up at work. I put the 2 and 2 together. It wasn't rocket science, and I knew that I was pregnant. And after that point, he really didn't have much to say over the fact that I was.
Well said, Judge Lauren, well said. Mr. Kennedy drops a truth bomb and says that when Ms. Pope was pregnant, he asked her if he could be the father, and she told him that he was in the clear. And let's not forget the fact that she failed to admit that she was sleeping with 2 other men at the time.
It is your testimony that she did not tell you she even had the baby until after the baby was already here. She didn't tell you anything about the pregnancy, anything. You didn't hear from her until after the baby was born.
Yes,
I had messaged him the night
And you
that I
get
went into
some
labor.
messages.
That's a really awkward way to tell someone that he could be the father of your child. Mr. Kennedy had no idea she was pregnant until the baby was born. From the texts he submitted as evidence, you can honestly tell he did not want to be the father.
I took a 6-hour trip out of my day to go up and actually see the child with my own eyes just to make sure she was being truthful. I didn't get anything until after the child was born.
And that's what any real man should do. The moment someone you used to sleep with tells you that they are pregnant with your child, the least you can do is go to see the child and the mother. But from his facial expression, it seems like he already had doubts about the baby.
You do have to own the fact that once you tell a man or he becomes aware that there are 2 other possibilities, you do have a responsibility to get clarity on that. Do you agree with that? And that's why you're here.
Your Honor, can I have something to say? You know, I've been picking up the pieces from my daughter, and I've been her main support. And the day that he came to my house.
To be fair, Mr. Kennedy is not technically denying the child. The issue here is the fact that Ms. Pope already told him that he was not the father of the child. So her coming out of the blues to say that he is the father is just plain suspicious for real.
Too concerned about who our other options when to begin with. He never told me who was on the other side of his gate. I also found out that there was another woman in his life that also had a child 3 months prior to me. If he would have told me that he was with somebody else and that she was also pregnant, I would have never even bothered with him.
It's really that simple. Their relationship was never defined from the beginning, and that's why they are in such a mess. I think we've seen enough of their drama. It's time for us to get the results. Who knows? Maybe Mr. Kennedy is the father after all.
Mr. Kennedy, you are the father.
Are you ready? Because this case will throw you off your... Now, Ms. Hatcher tells the courtroom that before her son was born, she slept with 3 different men. She hopes to right her wrongs today and wants her son to know who his real dad is. Anyway, here is how the case begins.
Ms. Hatcher, you confess that at the time you conceived your 2-year-old son, Josiah, you had sexual relations with 3 men. Now, you don't want your son to suffer for your mistakes, so you've requested paternity testing on all 3 men.
Yes, Your Honor.
I mean, I did say this case was going to blow you off your seat. How do you sleep with 3 different men before giving birth to your child? That's just crazy. How did she get herself into such a messy situation in the first place?
At the time, I had sex with 3 different men around the same time my son conceived. I did have a 5.5-month fling with Mr. Scott, and I also had...
No, Your Honor, that is not true. It was just sex, period.
That's what a fling is!
Not to me, not to me.
So please, keep going, Ms. Hatcher.
I also had a 7.5-year relationship with my ex, and I had a one-night stand with him around the time.
Wow, Ms. Hatcher is one busy woman. Looks like she was kicking it in bed with all 3 men at the same time during the period her child was conceived. Judge Lauren is going to have a hard time finding out who the dad is, that's for sure.
Did you use protection?
No, we did not.
How much did he pay?
Excuse me, Mr. Scott? You're gonna be respectful in this courtroom.
Your Honor, this is him. He is a disrespectful man.
I am siding with the judge on that one. Staying with such a man for 5.5 months should never be an option for any woman. Well, I guess she had her reasons, but if she wants him to be the father of their child, she better think again.
Okay, I'm doubtful because she said out of her own mouth, DNA test. I didn't know nothing about her situation. When she came and told me she was pregnant, I believed her.
Okay.
Because she's a woman who knows her body, who's supposed to know her body, who knows what she done.
So when the baby was born, were you in the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
This is one hell of a messy situation. Mr. Scott, who happens to be one of the possible fathers, is furious because he claims that he thought the baby was his all along. He claims he had no idea she had slept with other people while they were together.
Oh man, you know, I came to him like a woman and I said, you know what, Josiah might not be yours.
Why didn't you just win?
Josiah might not,
when?
Josiah might not be yours.
When did you do that?
And he was like, oh, I could have figured that.
It seems like Ms. Hatcher has a totally different story to tell the courtroom. She says that Mr. Scott never believed the child was his. She even claimed that he got a new girlfriend and told her that the baby looked nothing like him.
You have to understand why all these men are doubtful. I mean, Mr. Blake.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you sleep with Miss Hatcher on the 26th of December? That's the day after Christmas. You should remember that.
We got a hotel room that night. Possibility it could be mine. If it's mine, I don't have a problem with taking care of mine.
Was it protected sex on that day?
We had a little alcohol, but I think so, Your Honor.
Aha, that was a hilarious answer. Ms. Hatcher claims that she remembers having sex with Mr. Blake twice, and the second time, they did not use protection. As you would expect, Mr. Blake doesn't go with her story. I wonder who is telling the truth.
You say your son, you feel like he's built like Mr. Blake.
Well, he got broad shoulders like Mr. Blake, and he has, you know, his hands are thick, his feet are flat. I really don't know Mr. Blake that well.
Okay.
Honestly, only the DNA results can solve this problem. Apparently, Ms. Hatcher feels the baby belongs to both Mr. Blake and her ex-boyfriend of over 7 years. One thing is for sure though, she doesn't think her child belongs to Mr. Scott.
You don't need to defend yourself.
That's not the point, ma'am. I have 3 kids that are watching me, and that woman just said something about my character, and I have a right to say something myself towards my character.
What about your character?
She just said that I'm this and that, I don't take care of my kids.
Ask him what he does
if I don't take care of my kids, call him.
You don't take care of your kids, and you know you don't.
Ugh. One can only ask how these two manage to even find themselves in the same room talkless of sleeping together. All they do is yell at each other. Geez, if they end up being the parents, it would be a disaster.
Are today, Mr. Scott, as it relates to Josiah?
My hopes, period, are that we find out who his father is. Whether it is me, him, or him. I want to know, because if he's mine, I want to be with him. I got 3 kids.
Well, I wasn't expecting to see a soft side from Mr. Scott. It seems like he doesn't mind being the father of the child. Well, let's see what the DNA results have to say about the whole situation. Who do you think the father is?
When it comes to Mr. Blake, you are not the father.
I'm sorry.
When it comes to Mr. Scott, you are the father.
Ms. Arbogast is in court claiming that the defendant, Mr. Vess, started to deny her daughter immediately he got into a relationship with her former friend. She is furious that Mr. Vess has ignored the needs of her kids, and therefore, she is suing for the amount of $5,000 for childcare expenses. The case starts like this.
Ms. Arbogast, you are in court today claiming the defendant started denying your 2-year-old daughter, Kinsley, once he got into a relationship with your former friend.
Yes,
You
Your Honor.
claim the defendant has ignored the needs of your children, so you are suing for the maximum amount of $5,000 for child care expenses. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
I can sense it. These two are about to bring war into the courtroom. Ms. Arbogast says all Mr. Vess has done for her child in 2 years sums up to $100. Mr. Vess admits to that and says that he isn't sure the baby is even his.
Do you help financially with that child?
I have in the past, but recently, no, I have not.
You have not helped in the past, not at all. You've helped $100 per both kids in 2 years. 2 years.
Well, I wasn't expecting him to drop in like that. Apparently, Mr. Vess and Ms. Arbogast have another child together, but Mr. Vess believes that he is the father of that child. The crazy thing is that he also has not done anything for that child as well. Is he a deadbeat? Or what's going on?
Hold on, let me understand this. And Mr. Fritz is your current boyfriend?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you say he's the person helping you raise Mr. Vess's children?
Yes, he's the one who they wake up to every morning. He's the one who takes them out, does things with them, plays football with them. He does the father role, not Mr. Vess.
Aha! Now, I understand why he has so much knowledge of what's going on. Mr. Fritz is Ms. Arbogast's current boyfriend, and he is the one who has been helping with the kids. Both kids even call him Daddy. Imagine that? That's really disappointing on Mr. Vess's side.
Is that us? That's anybody older than
Not me.
Shoot. So, he obviously wanted it a lot, so I gave it. Our date of conception was between August 11th and August 13th. Then he told me I couldn't be friends with somebody I had been friends with for 9 years.
Wait, what? I'm confused. Ms. Arbogast says that Mr. Vess told her that she couldn't be friends with someone she had known for 9 years. And the only way to break that bond was if she had sex with the guy in question. I'm sorry, but how does that even make sense?
So wait, how did this happen then? You just go up to this guy and say, my boyfriend says we should have sex.
It was late at night. He came and got me. We went to the lake and, well, we went to the gas station, bought condoms, went to the lake, did our deal, and I went back home and got in bed with him.
Men. This has to be the weirdest thing I have ever heard in this courtroom. What's even crazy is the fact that she actually followed through with it. Mr. Vess admits that he said something along that line, but he only said it because they were in an argument and he was upset.
He held her before I held her.
Yeah, I thought she was my daughter until you told me that she wasn't.
I never once told you
It was
she
on
wasn't your daughter.
What did she say, Mr. Vess?
We were on speakerphone and she blurted out that Kinsley may not be mine.
Wow, I think we can understand why Mr. Vess is having doubts. Mr. Vess' girlfriend tells the judge that she remembers when they were on a call and Ms. Arbogast actually told Mr. Vess point blank that he was not the father of his child. As you would expect, she denies it.
Ever have told him that Kinsley is not his. I have been begging for a paternity test. I even asked him to go and buy one of those $35 kits off the shelf DNA paternity tests that you do at home and then you send it to a lab. Oh, I don't have the money for that.
Okay, but if you're the one begging for it, why didn't you go out and get it yourself?
Because you're the one who denies her.
The question that keeps popping in my head is how these guys were able to make 2 babies. Since the case started, they have not been able to agree on a single thing. Phew, I'm pretty sure Judge Lauren is tired of their back and forth.
You say it's pathetic that you still don't want to grow up and claim your daughter that you signed the birth certificate for. Mr. Vess responds, I would claim that thing if I knew she was mine. Ms. Arbogast says, oh, so now she's just a thing. A thing? That could potentially be your daughter.
Well, we can understand where Ms. Arbogast is coming from. He has actually never been in the kids' lives. Talkless of him trying to do anything for the kids, there's no guarantee that he is actually going to be any better if Ms. Arbogast allows him to see the kids.
You believe, Mr. Vess, that you see a resemblance with Cameron, but not with Kinsley.
Yeah, I see the resemblance between Cameron and Kinsley because, yeah, they're siblings.
But do you have a resemblance with Cameron?
But I don't see a resemblance to myself and Kinsley.
You do not?
No.
She is pretty confident that the baby belongs to him. She says by looking at the child's face, she can automatically tell that the baby belongs to Mr. Vess. Well, like the judge said, protection is not 100% effective. I think we should put an end to this and see what the results say.
Mr. Vess, you are the father.
I see.